Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening and thank you everyone for joining this webinar. This webinar is called Dr. Manju Jilla's Master Classes. We MCure with a division called IVA. IVA is basically an infertility division with the scientific theme of Programming 28 for this year. Programming 28 is based on the concept of managing the ovarian cycle with different GnRH analogs, gonadotropins, and hormones as per different protocol. We are committed towards academic, and today, when we speak about Dr. Manju Jilla's masterclass, we are proud enough to say that this is our second in series with the topic azoospermia. You all know Dr. Manju Jilla ma'am very well. She is the director of Jilla Hospital Infertility, IVF, ICSI, and Advanced Endoscopic Surgeon. She has done more than 20,000 laparoscopic surgeries, more than 6,000 IVF ICSI cycles, and more than 3,000 successful IVF babies. She has achieved many first in Marathwada region. First test tube baby, first ICSI baby, first donor egg pregnancy, and first freezing embryo pregnancy. Dr. Jilla Hospital is a training center recognized by the Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecological Societies of India, FOGSI, and we have trained more than 200 PG students in ultrasound, IVF, ICSI, and infertility from India and abroad, Sri Lanka, Dubai, Muscat, Iraq, etc. Dr. Jilla ma'am is invited for numerous conferences as a speaker on infertility, IVF, ICSI, and high-risk pregnancies. May I now request Dr. Manju Jilla ma'am to take over the session and say once again a thanks to you to continue this series for us. Thank you, ma'am. Please share your screen,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much. Yeah. I'll share the screen. Yeah. Well, we have the next topic today, and why the slideshow is not starting? Yeah. Okay. I'll start. No. Why I'm not getting it from the slideshow? Today we are going to speak on azoospermia. I'm going to give you 3 classic cases, and at the end of my talk, I would be happy if you would be able to tell how we would manage these cases. I have not put them in the PPT, but all the listeners, if you can write it down and at the end of the lecture, tell me how would you manage them. Case 1 is a patient. I'm going to only tell you the positive findings in the case. He comes with 6 reports of semen analysis showing azoospermia. Consistently, all reports are showing a semen volume of 0.5 ml, pH of 4, that is extremely acidic semen, and he has no other problem than only this report. This is case 1. He has also done a transrectal ultrasound where the seminiferous tubules are shown to be dilated more than 2 centimeters. This is case 1. Let us take the case 2. Case 2 is a patient who has the positive findings are azoospermia in the semen report, volume, pH, fructose, everything is normal. His serum FSH is 0.5. He says he had to take certain medicines for puberty. He has loss of libido and difficulty in sexual intercourse. Apart from that, there are no other findings on any other of his examination points. And the third case is the positive findings in the third case are azoospermia report, pH, volume, everything normal. FSH is 18. And he has done a lot of tests. Karyotype is normal, and Y microdeletion shows deletion in AZFA factor. Now these are the 3 cases. If you listen to the lecture, I think at the end of the lecture you would be able to tell me the exact diagnosis and management of each of these. So male factor infertility is not actually a disease in itself. It can be caused by a number of underlying diseases. In short, we can divide azoospermia into failure of sperm production or failure of sperm delivery. From here on, when it is a production problem, we would be saying testicular failure, and when it is a sperm delivery problem, we would be saying obstructive azoospermia, which can be functional or which could be pathological. So failure of sperm production, is also called as non-obstructive azoospermia, and structural obstruction in the pathway of the semen delivery could be in the proximal part or in the distal part, or it could be functional like retrograde ejaculation. One of the most important investigations, whenever we see a report of azoospermia, we would always like to know what is the serum FSH level. Like when we look at the ovaries, we want to know about the AMH. When we see an azoospermia report, we want to know the levels of serum FSH. If FSH is high, we know definitely the seminiferous tubules are not producing sperms. If FSH is very low, we are probably seeing a case of pre-testicular failure, that is the FSH and LH required for stimulation of the Sertoli and Leydig cells is not enough, and therefore the sperm production has stopped from the testes. But if the FSH LH levels are normal, then maybe the testes are functioning and the pathway for expulsion of these sperms is either obstructed or not functioning properly. Or sometimes even with normal FSH, the testicular or the seminiferous tubules may not produce sperms. So when FSH is normal and repeatedly the reports come as azoospermia, we may require the help of a testicular biopsy to know exactly whether the seminiferous tubules are producing sperms or not, and only then label it as a testicular failure or a obstructive azoospermia. So we can divide our azoospermia is pre-testicular, that is hypogonadotrophic, which is very rare. In less than 2% of the patients, you will get this hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. In my 40 years of practice, I have hardly seen 3 or 4 patients with hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Most common is testicular failure. And there are a large number of genetic problems which lead to testicular failure. Nature does not want abnormal DNA to go ahead. And that is why it stops at the level of spermatogenesis. And there is another small percentage of post-testicular failure, that is obstruction to the flow of sperms from the testes to the ejaculatory, outside from the ejaculatory duct and the urethra. Most common cause is a vasectomy, but the other causes, common cause, genetic cause in some ethnic groups is a cystic fibrosis or a bilateral absence of vas. Most important thing what I want to say about azoospermia is, in the past, whenever we got a azoospermia report, we are from the older school. That time before the 90s, that is in the 80s, an azoospermia report just meant use of donor sperms. But today, almost 80 to 85% of azoospermic males, whether it is a pre-testicular, testicular, or a post-testicular failure, all of them, from all of them, we can retrieve sperms and give them their biological baby. And that is why the importance of today's topic as to how we can simplify and get their sperms and use them for giving the man his biological child. So whenever we get a report of azoospermia, all those practicing infertility should have a format and ask the man to write his details in that format. The format should contain the details of his history. That is, what is the duration of his infertility, whether it is a primary or secondary infertility, whether he has a loss of libido or inability to participate in a sexual activity. What is his general health, particularly does he have diabetes or any respiratory problems? History of any genitourinary infections, exposure to agents that might have an effect on spermatogenesis, like medical agents, hormones, anabolic steroids, alpha blockers, chemotherapeutic agents, then environmental factors like pesticides, or excessive heat delivered to the testes through a long-standing varicocele or undescended testes, recreational drugs, alcohol, any surgery on the reproductive tract for a hydrocele, varicocele, history of genetic abnormalities in the family, like the brother is not having a child or the uncles did not have a child. So first degree relatives, whether they are carrying the same genetic material leading to infertility. All of this will give us a direction in managing our azoospermic couple. After taking a detailed history, we must have a physical examination, and which consists of examining the testes for the size, the consistency. When spermatogenesis is present, testes are soft. Any presence of varicocele, and most important is palpate the vas deferens. If the vas is palpable, that means this is a very important thing to rule out cystic fibrosis. Well, after a clinical examination, one must also do ultrasound of the testes and a transrectal ultrasound to see the vas deferens and the ejaculatory duct and the seminiferous seminal vesicles, their size, their presence. All this put together will help us to make a correct diagnosis of azoospermia. Sperm retrieval in obstructive azoospermia is almost 100%. And so prognosis is very good when we have a case of obstructive azoospermia. We can tell the man that he can have his own biological child. He does not need donor sperms. So let us focus on obstructive azoospermia. It is a simpler topic, and once we understand that, we will be able to guide our patients in a much simpler way. So we know that these are the testes, and the seminiferous tubules in this testes will produce the sperms, which via the reed testes will be stored in the epididymis, and then from the vas deferens, it will open into the ejaculatory ducts, and at the same time over there the seminal vesicle fluid will enter. This is the ejaculatory duct, and then the semen will go into the urethra and will be ejaculated. Now in this whole system, we know that in obstructive azoospermia, the testes are normal, functional, but there can be an obstruction between the epididymis and the vas deferens. There can be a vasectomy where the vas is cut off, or the vas may be completely absent as in cystic fibrosis, or there may be an obstruction at the ejaculatory duct, or at the time of ejaculation, the bladder neck should contract. If that doesn't contract, there is a retrograde ejaculation. Now, a simple semen report will give us a lot of idea. We will know whether we are dealing with these distal obstructions or we are dealing with the proximal obstructions. Because the most important content in the semen is the fluid coming from the seminal vesicles. 80% of the seminal fluid is the fluid from seminal vesicles. This fluid has got a alkaline pH. The rest of the 20% or 25% of the fluid is coming from the prostate, and this fluid is acidic. Hardly 2 to 3% is coming from the testes, and very little amount is coming from the Cowper's glands. So if we look at a semen report or understand the contents of the semen, 75% of the seminal fluid is from seminal vesicles, which has got an alkaline pH. 20 to 30% is from the prostate, which has got an acidic pH, very low pH. And only 2 to 5% is coming from the testes. Now, if you have a semen report which is consistently showing very low volume, less than 1.5 ml or less than even 1 ml, we must suspect a ejaculatory duct obstruction or a retrograde ejaculation or a failure of sperm emission. So that means whenever the volume is low, the seminal vesicle fluid is not coming in the semen, or this although it is coming, it is going back in the bladder. So to summarize, let us find out what is the difference in proximal, that is at the vas or epididymis, at the ejaculatory duct, or at the bladder neck. If there is a problem, how can we differentiate by simple tests these azoospermic men? So whenever there is a obstruction of the vas or epididymis, the semen volume is normal. The semen pH is normal because seminal vesicle fluid is present in the semen. If we do a urine analysis of the post-ejaculatory sample, post-ejaculatory urine sample, then the seminal vesicles will be normal. This is in a patient, say, who has no vas deferens, like a cystic fibrosis patient or a vasectomy patient. But if there is an ejaculatory duct obstruction, volume of the semen will always be low, 1. pH of the semen will always be acidic. And if we do a transrectal ultrasound, you will see dilated seminal vesicles. If you have a problem with the bladder neck contraction during ejaculation, that is called as retrograde ejaculation, which is many times seen in patients of long-standing diabetes. So in those patients, the volume will definitely be low because most of the semen has gone back to the bladder. Then they may be azoospermic because whatever fluid is coming is nothing but the remaining from the seminal vesicles. pH will be normal, and if we collect urine from the post-ejaculated semen urine, if we collect from the bladder, then we will have at least 10 sperms per high power field in this type of a urine, telling us about retrograde ejaculation. I'm sure one of the cases you have been able to diagnose by this time. That is, I think, the case 1. Now, after knowing or after being able to clinically diagnose these patients, treatment is simple of these distal blocks. So if it is an ejaculatory duct obstruction, just with the help of a scope, you can do a transurethral resection of the ejaculatory duct and open it. And that solves his problem, and you will start getting sperms in the ejaculate. If it is a retrograde ejaculation, then we can give them sympathomimetic drugs like pseudoephedrine. 60 to 120 milligrams is given 1 to 2 hours pre-ejaculation, 7 to 10 days pre-ovulation. So once this is given, you can get antegrade ejaculation. But if that doesn't happen, then we can use the urine sample, give Citralka or alkaline mixtures, and post-ejaculation urine can be collected, centrifuged, and those sperms can be used for ICSI to give the man his biological child. If there is a complete failure of ejaculation, which happens in neurological disorders like spinal cord injury, trauma, tumors, vibroelectrical ejaculation can be done in these patients. So if we have a semen which has got low volume, which is acidic, we are probably dealing with ejaculatory duct obstruction, and we can do a transurethral resection of the ejaculatory duct. And if that fails, then we can do a surgical sperm retrieval, that is PISA or TISA. If we have semen or sperms in the urine, post-ejaculated urine, we can give them alpha mimetics or sympathomimetics and make it antegrade ejaculation, or we can use sperms from the urine. And if all that is not possible, again we can take out sperms from the testes by PISA or TISA. And if it is a failure of ejaculation, we can use a electroejaculate and get sperms. If that fails, again we can get sperms by TISA or PISA. Now if we have the proximal part which is obliterated, that is volume of sperms is normal, pH is normal, then maybe it is a non-obstructive azoospermia, or it is a proximal obstructive azoospermia, or he may be a hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism patient. So semen volume is normal, semen pH is normal. Then if it is an obstructive azoospermia, that is when FSH is normal, neither low nor high, then it could be an obstruction at the reed testes. That is, these seminiferous tubules are not opening in the epididymis. For such a case, nothing can be done. All that we can do is a surgical sperm retrieval from the testes. That in these cases, the epididymis also cannot be palpated. Then it can be an obstruction from the epididymis to the vas. Here a surgery can be done to join this epididymis to the vas deferens. It can be a vasectomy where the vas has been cut, where again a vasectomy reversal can be done, or it can be a cystic fibrosis where the vas is completely absent. So if it is a young couple where vasectomy has been done and they want to have a child, in the younger couple, prognosis of vasovasostomy is very good. It is cheap, it is effective, it is permanent. So this shows that the cost benefits of vasectomy reversal over ICSI. Similarly, if the wife's age is less, reversal of vasectomy should be done. And when we are doing the reversal of vasectomy, usually we take the semen from the proximal part. And these sperms can be frozen. In case the reversal fails, the frozen sperms can be used for ICSI. If the wife's age is more than 37 or 38 and we really don't have much time, we might as well directly proceed for sperm retrieval from the testes or epididymis and ICSI instead of a reconstructive surgery. So vasectomy reversal has excellent prognosis in young couples. Now, if we have a proximal obstruction and we want to give the man his own biological child, it is very simple because in obstructive azoospermia, the testes are full of sperms. We can aspirate the sperms just by a simple FNAC of the testes. Hold the testes and aspirate it with a needle and you will get plenty of sperms. Or we can take a small nick on the tunica and pull out the seminiferous tubules and milk them for sperms. We can also take the sperms from the epididymis because the epididymis is the storehouse of sperms. And this can be done blindly by holding the epididymis and blindly puncturing the epididymis and aspirating, where also we can get sperms, or taking a nick on the scrotal skin and actually putting a needle in the lumen of the epididymis and aspirating the sperms. That is microsurgical epididymal sperm aspiration. And the blind aspiration is called a percutaneous epididymal sperm aspiration. So when it is a distal obstruction, it can be intratesticular, that is at the level of the reed testes, where no surgery can be done and we have to do a surgical sperm retrieval. If it is an epididymal obstruction, we can do an epididymal vasostomy, or we can do a surgical sperm retrieval in the form of PISA or TISA. And if it is a vasal obstruction, we can do a vasovasostomy. And if that doesn't work, we can do a surgical sperm retrieval by TISA or PISA. Most important factor, whether to do a surgery or not, depends on the age, and especially the wife's age. If she has crossed 39, it is better to do an ICSI right away than to do a surgery. So that, in short, completes our obstructive azoospermia. Just to summarize, obstruction can be at the reed testes, at the epididymis, at the vas, at the ejaculatory duct, or it can be a retrograde ejaculation or failure of ejaculation. Presence of seminal vesicle fluids helps us to differentiate between the distal obstructions from the proximal obstructions. Distal obstructions can be treated medically and surgically. If it is ejaculatory duct obstruction, surgical. If it is a retrograde ejaculation, medical. But the proximal obstructions either need a surgery like vasovasostomy, vasoepididymostomy, or a direct surgical sperm retrieval, which is simple, like an FNAC or a PISA, NISA, or a TISA, or a conventional TISA. That is taking a nick on the tunica and removing the seminiferous tubules. So all patients with obstructive azoospermia will have normal FSH, normal size of testes, normal consistency of testes, normal secondary sex characters, normal sexual activity, and a very good prognosis for sperm retrieval and fathering their own biological child. Now let us come to the second uncommon part, that is hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Just like in women, we know that FSH, LH are required for ovulation. Similarly, FSH and LH are also required for spermatogenesis. We have two types of cells in the testis, that is the Leydig cells and the Sertoli cells. The Leydig cells have receptors for LH and the Sertoli cells have receptors for FSH. And the Leydig cells produce testosterone, and it is this intratesticular testosterone which is very, very important for spermatogenesis. Now, we all know the hypothalamo-gonado-pituitary-gonadal axis. We know that the GnRH, above the GnRH are the kisspeptin nuclei, which stimulate the release of GnRH, and pituitary causes release of FSH and LH, and LH causes release of testosterone from the Leydig cells, and this testosterone gives a negative feedback to FSH and LH. Now, the common causes of hypogonadism, that is no FSH LH coming from the pituitary, are genetic. One, that is from puberty itself, these children do not have FSH LH and therefore they have delayed puberty. The second is certain brain tumors, radiations, or sometimes because of taking anabolic steroids, like athletes and many of these people may take anabolic steroids, and that testosterone that depresses the release of FSH LH, leading to reduction in production of sperms. The treatment of hypogonadism is simple. If we diagnose it correctly, if it is because of anabolic steroids or any drugs, we can stop the drugs for 3 months, wait and see if spermatogenesis starts. But in most of them, when it is genetic, when the man with azoospermia says that he had a delayed puberty or puberty was induced with steroids, then we are probably dealing with a genetic condition of hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. And almost 35 genes are involved in this chain of hypothalamo-pituitary axis. Many of them, even minor deletions or changes in these genes, can lead to hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Now, we have a very common syndrome called as a Kalman syndrome, where there is anosmia and very low FSH-LH. This is a classical syndrome, but apart from anosmia, there are many other genes which cause hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism, and actually a panel, a microarray chip is available to find out these genes, and the knowledge of these genes today is important because of the advances in genetic science, which we will be discussing later. So all men with hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism should have a genetic counseling, and almost 35 to 40% of these patients are going to have some or the other genetic defect leading to hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. The best thing is management of these patients is very simple. One more thing is these patients will also have loss of libido. They may have very lesser, quantity of secondary sex or male-like characters because the testes don't produce testosterone. And if we try to give testosterone to these patients, we further depress FSH-LH. Therefore, testosterone is not the answer for these patients. It is gonadotrophins or GnRH. And that too has to be given for 3 to almost 6 months to have a very good effect. And most of these patients will start showing sperms in their semen. Some of them will have a natural pregnancy, and the rest may require assisted conception. Now we come to the commonest cause of azoospermia, that is testicular failure. The seminiferous tubules inside the testes are devoid of blood supply. They are producing almost 40 million sperms almost every day. So there is a very rapid mitotic and meiotic division going on continuously in the seminiferous tubules. If there is no blood, who is nourishing them? It is the secretions of the Sertoli cells. And the stimuli is coming from the intratesticular testosterone produced by the Leydig cells. Now, if these seminiferous tubules are destroyed by, say, orchitis, mumps in the past, or radiation, or heat, the testes are outside the human body because they need a temperature lesser than the body temperature. Like they need a temperature of 34, 33, 34, 35, whereas our body temperature is 37. The seminiferous tubules get destroyed at a higher temperature. They cannot undergo spermatogenesis, is inhibited with higher temperature. Therefore, a long-standing varicocele also can damage the seminiferous tubules. But the most important cause of a failure of spermatogenesis inside the seminiferous tubules is because of defects in the chromosomes or in the genes or DNA. Because we see such a rapid meiotic and mitotic activity is going on in the seminiferous tubules. 40 million cells are being produced every day. And any defective gene of mitosis or meiosis, more than 2,000 such genes have been identified, which can lead to testicular failure or testicular azoospermia. So if we find out the causes of testicular azoospermia, they say 35% are non-genetic, 40% are idiopathic, and 25% are genetic. But even these idiopathic may come into genetic because we really do not know the function of many of our genes today. But the common things which are known are a karyotypic abnormality. And the commonest karyotypic abnormality found in azoospermic males is a Klinefelter syndrome, that is XXY. Besides that, you can have translocations, deletions, duplications, inversions. So if we have a proper or a good karyotype report, which is not showing anything like no Klinefelter syndrome, no translocation like the Robertsonian or other balanced translocations, then, and still the report is azoospermia, in the history there is nothing suggestive that there must have been some radiation or there must have been cryptorchidism or a long-standing varicocele, then before doing a surgical sperm retrieval in this person, we must do a Y microdeletion test. Let us understand this Y chromosome. The Y chromosome really is a junk chromosome. It has only got 3 important regions. In the small arm, that is in the P arm of the Y chromosome, we have the SRY gene, which causes the male differentiation in the embryo. The embryo becomes a male. And we have 3 areas in the Q arm, that is azoospermia factor A, azoospermia factor B, and azoospermia factor C. Now, these are very important, A and B. If there is any deletion in azoospermia factor A or azoospermia factor B, it will be a Sertoli cell only syndrome. We will very rarely or almost never get sperms. Whichever method we do, whether we do micro-TISA or whatever we do, we will not get sperms. So we may have to tell this man to go for donor sperms. If it is a deletion in AZFC, then probably there is a good chance that we can get sperms in this person. So that is the importance. Before subjecting the man to any surgical procedure, a Y microdeletion test should be done if karyotype has come to be normal. Besides the Y chromosome, supposing the Y microdeletion comes normal, it is known that there are certain very important genes in the X chromosome also of the man. One important is the androgen receptor gene present on the Q arm, and the other is the TEX11 gene present on the Q arm. The TEX11 is responsible for meiotic divisions, and if it is defective, meiosis stops, and therefore the spermatogenesis is arrested at primary spermatid level itself. Androgen receptor, if it is not there, spermatogenesis gets arrested. And we know the man has only one X chromosome, and if he inherits this abnormal gene from his mother, probably he will be azoospermic. So these two genes also need to be evaluated. We said that there is a large chunk of 40% patients having no cause found of azoospermia. So this idiopathic primary testicular failure is still related to hidden genetic factors, epigenetic abnormalities, gene and environment interactions. And as I told you, 2000 genes are involved in spermatogenesis. And this is the most common cause of testicular failure. One more common thing which has been found and has been reported in a recent paper in January 2019 is anemic men having Fanconi's anemia have defective DNA repair genes, and therefore they also have they also have Sertoli cell only syndrome. So this is a link between defective DNA, so therefore defective spermatogenesis, azoospermia, and many of these testicular azoospermia patients are also susceptible to cancers, especially testicular cancers, but not only testicular cancers, many other cancers, and they have a shorter life. Now, once we have diagnosed testicular azoospermia, like even if it is a Klinefelter syndrome, or the Y chromosome is showing only AZFC deletion, or the X chromosome is not showing the TEDx, then we can still try to find sperms, because even if we say it is a testicular failure, it is not 100% testicular failure. Few seminiferous tubules will still struggle to produce sperms. They will remain dilated and they will produce sperms. And if they are producing sperms, these sperms are likely to come through the reed testes to the epididymis in the vas, and then with the seminal vesicle fluid into the ejaculate. So if we have to find these few sperms, there are two ways to get sperms in testicular azoospermia. One is by actually cutting the testes and seeing it under microscope and removing the dilated seminiferous tubules, milking them and seeing for sperms. This is known as microtissue. But a recent paper says instead of that, you can also do an extended sperm preparation, semen preparation. So what we do is we take the semen, centrifuge it, take the pellet, make it into multiple fine drops, overlay it with oil and check it under high magnification, and a few sperms can be found in this semen sample also. The study showed that they had a 35% retrieval of sperms by extended sperm preparation. Importance of this study is we can completely avoid the prolonged and expensive surgical procedures in these men. Those sperms which are found can be frozen and used for ICSI. Now, if we do not find sperms in extended sperm preparation, we are going to go for testicular sperm aspiration or TESE, testicular sperm extraction. See, in non-obstructive or testicular azoospermia, there is very focal production of sperms, may or may not be there at all. So we can't do a simple FNAC of the testes. We have to cut the tunica. We have to let the seminiferous tubules come out, and the dilated tubules, we have to pull them out and milk them for sperms. So we can do a conventional testicular sperm extraction, or instead of that, we can do a microsurgical testicular sperm extraction where we actually cut the testes. Then what we do is under microscope look for dilated seminiferous tubules. With a fine forceps, we pull out these dilated seminiferous tubules. We do not cause bleeding in the testes. We could produce minimum damage. And so overall, success rate of TSE-ICSI in non-obstructive azoospermia, the sperm retrieval rate is as high as 40 to 48%, and the pregnancy rate by ICSI is almost 49%. Well, we know that we can get certain karyotypic abnormalities in patients of testicular azoospermia. What are these? These are like most common Klinefelter syndrome or balanced translocations or Robertsonian translocations. So if we use these sperms for ICSI, definitely we are going to produce embryos with abnormal chromosomes. And these patients are actually patients for PGD, so that we do not give an abortion to the wife. There is a very good chance of finding sperms in Klinefelter's patients. Almost 34 to 40% of patients with Klinefelter syndrome, sperms will be retrieved and we will achieve pregnancies. But if we have to give a successful child, probably PGD will also have to be introduced along with ICSI. Now, if we do not have, if we do a testicular biopsy, supposing we do aspiration, we do not get anything. We do a micro TC, we do not get anything. Or we do a testicular biopsy and it is showing only a maturation arrest and we are reaching up to secondary spermatocytes. No cytokinesis, no sperm head, middle piece, tail, nothing. These secondary spermatocytes have undergone meiotic division, they have haploid chromosomes, and they also can be used for ICSI to give the man his genetic child. So there are papers where they show that if you inject round spermatids, still we can get pregnancies. 14 babies born after round spermatid injection in human oocyte. Well, if it is a Sertoli cell only syndrome, what do? Have we got to waste that man's entire genome? Or is there anything that science can do to help him? So there is a paper published in Nature where they said that what they did is they did the cloning of a fertilized oocyte. They removed the nucleus and they added a man's skin cell nucleus, and then they put transcription factors in such a way that they could produce a sperm. So his genetic sperm could be produced. They could even produce sperm germ cells which can be injected into his testes and we can start spermatogenesis. So this is still at a very research stage. Probably with the amount of research going on in stem cells, this may become a truth today or tomorrow. In the meantime, men with Sertoli cell syndrome only have to wait. And this is a small comic on this, that the man waited and waited for stem cell research, died, and told a little one that I waited for stem cell research. The little one said, yes, I am that embryo. Well, so now, because we are going to do ICSI and because we know we are taking sperms from testicular failure patients, many of them who are going to have a lot of genetic abnormalities. Today, for patients with testicular failure, there are DNA panels or there are gene panels which can find out all the genes, all those 2000 genes responsible for spermatogenesis, and can tell you which all defective genes are present in that man, leading to azoospermia. If we are going to retrieve his sperms from his seminiferous tubules and use it for ICSI, we are also going to transmit it to his offspring. And if it is a male offspring, he is going to suffer in the same way as his father suffered. So if we want to stop this, genetic engineering can come into play, and with the help of CRISPR, we can remove that faulty gene, put a good one, and let the baby have a very healthy life with all his father's genetic material, except that abnormal gene which led to azoospermia in his father. So in short, sperms can be retrieved in majority of azoospermic males, whether it is hypogonadotrophic, whether it is testicular, or it is obstructive. The differentiation in pre-testicular, testicular, and post-testicular is very important in management. And for this, we have to do a serum FSH, check by physical examination, testicular size, consistency, presence of vas, look at the semen volume, its pH, presence of fructose, do a transrectal ultrasound, look at the post-ejaculatory urine. All this will help us to differentiate between different types of azoospermias. Genetic cause of azoospermia will help us in counseling the man, will allow us to tell them if they can go ahead with their own genetic baby and PGD, and also allow us to keep a watch on the long-term health of the man, because we know that he is susceptible to cancers, and especially cancers of the testes. Stem cell research and CRISPR techniques will help us in future to help those males with Sartori cell only syndrome or carrying abnormal genetic materials, so that he can father his biological child, which will be healthier than him. So I think we come back to case 1, 2, 3. Anyone from the audience can tell me what was case 1, what was case 2, and what was case 3? Hello? I should stop screen share. How do I talk to all of you?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah,
Do you
hi.
want me to unmute others?
Yeah, unmute. Let us have a discussion.
So if I unmute others, everybody will please speak one by one. May I request everybody to speak one by one? So I'm unmuting. You all can unmute yourself now. Please go ahead, but speak one by one. Ma'am, I think there are no more chat messages also. Anna, Dr. Vaishali, if you want to speak, you can unmute yourself. Dr. Vaishali Deshpande, Dr. Vaishali Umap, Dr. Sadhna Salunke, ma'am, you can unmute yourself. Dr. Prashant Bhingare, sir, you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, or we can simply do a next round of emailer where we can ask questions and take it to you, ma'am. Is it okay?
Yeah, but I have not got answers to my 3 cases.
Yeah, I think Dr. Amit, Dr. Geeta Rajput madam want to speak. She had raised her hand. Geeta Rajput madam, please.
Kishore, you can start your video and just navigate the session, na? I'll come back in a minute.
Okay. I think Dr. Geeta madam. Hello. Yeah, yes, madam. I think Dr. Geeta Rajput madam want to speak. Geeta Rajput madam, you can unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
madam.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, this
Hello.
is Dr. Kissan.
Yeah.
Is Dr.
Hello.
Geeta speaking?
Yes,
Yes, madam.
I'm
Yes,
speaking. Case number 1 is obstructive azoospermia. Hello.
Yeah, but ejaculatory duct obstruction,
Yes.
because volume is only
So
0.5
that can
ml.
be very
pH is
by
acidic,
reconstruction
fructose is absent.
or by taking the sperms. Yes.
So
an
we can
obstructive
just
pathology.
do a transurethral resection of the ejaculatory duct. We need not do any ICSI or anything. He will get sperms.
Yes. The results are very good.
Yes. What is the second case?
Second case is pre-testicular failure because low
Correct.
FSH.
Very correct.
Yes,
So what are we
yes.
going to do?
This is actually a difficult case. Genetic problems are there.
No, but now we are
So
going to treat him with gonadotropins.
gonadotropins, we can treat him.
What is the
Yes.
schedule?
Schedule
HCG
that I will
5000
not.
IU twice a week and HMG every 3rd day. And this continues for 3 months.
Okay.
And the last case?
Last case is
FSH is
here
very high,
FSH is
18.
very high.
Testes
Yes,
are
yes.
small in size.
As, failure of sperm
Yes,
production
this
is
is
here.
testicular failure.
Testicular failure. Yes.
And
yes.
his Y microdeletion is showing a deletion in AZFA.
Yes.
So, will you advise him microTISA or anything? You will tell him to go for donor sperms. Today, as on today, that is the only thing we have for him.
Yes, yes, yes.
We
Yes.
said that if there is Y
Thank you so much.
microdeletion,
Very detailed explanation.
yeah. Very nice, very nice.
Hello.
Very well tried, ma'am. Anyone else?
I think
Thank
Dr.
you so much.
Dr. Meeta Bilge madam want to speak something, madam.
Yeah.
Hi, Manju.
Hi, doctor. Hi, Meeta.
I joined just 5 minutes late and you were right in time probably. So I missed those 3 cases which you were talking about.
Okay,
But it was a wonderful session, all crystal clear. I don't think anybody has any doubts in their minds right now. Wonderful, Manju. Very nice.
Thank you.
So anybody? Please, anybody have questions? They can just put on a chat box, madam, so that we can later.
Yeah. And the participants want the last lecture also.
Yeah, correct.
So now this time we finish off with the male factor.
Correct.
And the next lecture or the next talk which we are going to have, we can either discuss the endometrium or we can discuss ovulation.
Fine.
So what do you want? You want ovulation, gonadotrophins and ovulation, or endometrium?
But ovulation and gonadotropin will be much better, so that it can be have a
there will be almost at least 2 talks on that.
Okay, fine. So
and that will take a little faster. We can take in 8 or 10 days also.
Okay, madam, not an issue. We can just continue in that rhythm, so that we can have more crystal clear session. So that will be fine. So we can schedule a proper this thing. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry to
Yeah, ma'am, this is Dr. Neha this side. I just wanted to ask, what is the cutoff of FSH for doing?
Very important. Very important. FSH cutoff is taken as around 7.6. To differentiate, to say that it is eugonadotrophic, FSH cutoff is 7.6.
Okay, so ma'am, one case scenario like age of 39 years, male with azoospermia, karyotype and Y chromosome deletion was normal, and FSH was 10.8, but still willing for own sperm. So can we just try testicular biopsy or TISA?
Micro-TISA. Let the urologist examine him locally and see the testicular size, consistency, and send him to a proper urologist for a micro-TISA.
Okay, ma'am.
You will get sperms.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
One more question, madam. Dr. Neha want to ask something.
Yes.
Dr. Neha, please, can you unmute yourself?
I have already asked the question just
Okay, right. Anybody else want to ask the question to expert madam?
What will be the dose of HMG in case 2? The way ma'am said, it should be given every 3rd day.
Yeah. Actually, many people don't give HMG, they give only HCG, because they feel that the very low amount of FSH which is present also is enough to cause the Leydig cells or the Sertoli cells to cause spermatogenesis. Once the intratesticular testosterone increases. So some people give just HCG 5000 IU bi-weekly for about 15-20 days. And after that, if they are not finding any response, that is rise in testosterone, then they start with HMG or FSH, 150 IU twice a week.
So we should monitor such patients with a level of testosterone, ma'am?
Yeah, actually level of testosterone or generally how the patient feels as testosterone rises, his sexual activity improves.
Okay, ma'am.
And we can do a semen analysis only after 70 to 75 days because that is
Yes,
the
ma'am. To
time
get
taken for
exact.
spermatogenesis.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else had a question, madam? You can just ask. Okay, madam.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you very much.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, madam.
We'll
Thanks,
have
thanks, thanks,
next on
thanks.
anovulation or ovulation induction or gonadotrophins. One of these we'll talk on.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to thanks everybody participant who had participated in this wonderful session, and special very thankful to Dr. Manju Jilla madam as an expert. We'll have continuous series of this webinar, madam, and next will be announced soon as per the date once date is fixed, and will be informed everybody, madam.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Kishore, for taking
Thank
it
you.
over.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
doctor.
See you all
Thank you,
soon.
doctor.